All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Scary Movie Month themed reserved seating October episode. We are excited to have our mailbag edition for the month where we are answering your questions, discussing your topics of everything Halloween season and horror movie month related. So I'm Adam Risky, and I'm here as always with TV's Rob DiCristino.
Hashtag scary movie month.
Hashtag Scary Movie Month. So, Rob, our first
Go
question.
Phillies! Go
Oh,
Phillies!
good point. And go Silver Shamrock.
Go Silver Shamrock! Go Phillies!
And go Woodsboro High School.
I like that one a lot. That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. So our first
Go
question.
Little Ben Affleck. Guys, Adam bought me this for he bought me a big one, but he bought me this little one for my birthday too.
I didn't even know it came with a mini.
It was super exciting.
It was really exciting.
Love it.
And go Caramia.
Oh, Caramia.
And go Happy Pumpkin. Freaked Out Pumpkin.
I don't have any more objects.
All right, so our first question comes from our very own Anthony. Read his columns on Fridays. Favorite discontinued candy to get while trick-or-treating, Rob? And he gave us some choices.
Okay.
100 Grand, Bonkers, Brock's Root Beer Barrels, Butterfinger BBs, O. Henry Bars, PB Max, and Raisinets, which threw me off because I thought Raisinets were still around.
Yeah, I didn't know either. All right.
So I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's Raisinets. I don't know if they're gone, but like I feel like I did have Brock's Root Beer Barrels at one point, and those were good. I think they were a hard candy, and it's just like you sucked on it. It tastes like root beer, but I don't remember. But like I'm all about the Raisinets. Like there's a scene in Whiplash where Paul Reiser pours Raisinets into popcorn. And Miles Teller kind of is just like rolls his eyes at him, and I'm just like, no, Paul Reiser's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and that's another reason, like, fuck Miles Teller. Like
the rooster.
Right. The rooster. Well, all right, I forgive the rooster. All right, so I'm going. I'm not a candy disclosure here. I'm not really a sweet candy person. I'm not really like I don't really like Sour Patches and Swedish. I'm a chocolate and peanut butter guy. I don't think we've ever improved on the Reese's Cup, frankly. So I'm going to go 100 Grand because it's the closest one to a chocolatey caramel crispy rice kind of deal. So that would be my pick, and I'm happy to take the ones out of your bags that you don't want.
Our next question comes from Epler Allen Poe on Twitter. What is a creepy ghost story you've heard? Okay, so this isn't like maybe exactly what you're looking for, but like I think it's close enough. You know the urban legend about Three Men and a Baby, about how there's a ghost in the window in the background, and it's been debunked. Mm-hmm. However, I still think it's creepy. It's a striking image, and when you don't know the onset. Thank you. I'll now I can't watch this video, so thank you for that. Before knowing the debunkness of it all, I was pretty freaked out by it. I saw it at an age where I was impressionable, and it's even worse for me because on Halloween at my first job out of school, I worked at a software company, and it was basically like Dunder Mifflin, but we sold software. And like it was like a Halloween thing, and somebody rolled in a TV and they said, "Hey, do you want to see something really creepy?" And then they put on the scene from Three Men and a Baby with the thing in the background, and people got visibly upset and scared. And that almost is worse. Like seeing other people being shook up and really bothered by something where you could tell like they're not faking it, like they're deeply troubled by what they're watching, made that scene even more powerful. So whatever power it had lost by being debunked, it regained by seeing people be upset by it.
I'll go with one similar to yours, and actually both of these I should mention. Because I was trying to remember why do I recently know the 3 Minute Baby thing?
Mhm.
So for Fantastic Fest, I saw a documentary called Lynch Oz, Alexander Philippe, his new documentary. It's quite good. It's a series of video essays about essentially David Lynch's love for The Wizard of Oz, which is well documented. And there's a bit in that where they go into the urban legend of that there's a scene where they're running down the yellow brick road, and in the background you see a man hang himself.
Yeah.
And that's been debunked as well. It's like a bird or something like that walking around the set. It's something. But I never know. I watched The Wizard of Oz 10,000 times when I was a kid. I never knew about that, and I never noticed it before.
Mhm.
Now I can't unnotice it.
So we got a similar question. This is from Matt.
Okay.
What's a scene or moment from a horror movie that always genuinely terrifies you? So I have a bunch that I could
Mine
think.
is easy, and it's always been the same for as long as I've seen this movie. Speaking of David Lynch, it is the man behind Winkies in Mulholland Drive.
See, that got me the first couple times, but like it's sort of yeah,
I
I've gotten used to it.
I just rewatched Mulholland Drive last night
Yeah,
because it fucking rules. And
yeah.
I even when that scene was coming, I left the room. Like I was like, I need to. When
Oh
they're
wow.
sitting at the diner talking, there's something about the way there's something, and I know it's not objectively like terrifying, but like it's like the thing in Signs. It's like the thing walking across the thing in Signs in the video. It's
Yeah.
it's one of those things where just like there's something about the way that he moves and the way that it's just the way it's framed and even the cutting back and forth, and then it gets trippy in terms of the editing. Um, I just that one still just creeps me out.
Yeah, another one I saw at the Music Box of Horrors or the Massacre at the time that really freaked me out was I was half asleep and they played a Masters of Horror episode called Imprints, directed by Takashi Miike.
Oh,
That was banned from Showtime because it was too graphic, and
Takashi
waking up
Miike.
to that was really upsetting. In terms of movies, the opening scene of Twilight Zone, the movie, where Dan Aykroyd says, "You want to see something really scary?" and he turns around and he's a monster. That was like my childhood one that scared me the most. And then more recently, Chady introduced a movie to me and Patrick called like I Am a Ghost, and it's like just some of the imagery is really unsettling, and like it's shot in a lot of like medium shots where like you're basically like if you were against the wall and you're looking at the other side of the room, and then there's this like really frightening imagery like kind of stationary like on the other side of the room, and that freaked me out. And then the last one is Cannibal Holocaust because I almost just kind of as a litmus test to see how far I could go in watching horror movies one time, watched that at an Eli Roth horror festival. He was there in person that day. They served a cannibal breakfast that day, so it was all like kind of a lark. But I watched that movie for the first time after knowing how notorious it was, and the scenes of animal torture and death are something I can never get out of my brain, and I I would very much like to have them out of my brain. So our next question comes from Chris. He asks, which standalone horror movie should have a franchise, and which horror franchise should have stopped after the first one? So I'll let you go first.
All right. So my first answer, which standalone movie could have been a franchise? Thought a lot about this one. Um, so this is kind of weird. I'm gonna say the Babadook. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I understand the Babadook is a metaphor for parenthood. I understand that it's about a lot of things, but I think that as powerful as that movie works, um, especially as a parent, and like when they're in those same situations, and it totally works for that particular metaphor. I also think it could work for a lot of other things too. So it would be
Mm-hmm.
cool to see the book get kind of passed around a little bit and see other takes on that particular image. You know what I mean? Like that particular
Yeah.
idea. I know it's very specific to that story, and I'm not saying they need to go out and make a franchise out of it, but
Mm.
like even another, like it would be interesting to see how that is reinterpreted for different kinds of fears.
For that one, I have two. One would be Brain Scan,
Mhm.
and you're just updating it where the trickster's updating with modern technology.
Right.
I just the trickster was such like a naked attempt at replicating like it being like the next horror icon. and it failed so hard that it makes me like rally around.
Right, you almost feel bad for it.
And then the other one is Snoop Dogg as Bones, because
Oh,
I didn't like Bones when I saw it in 2001. I revisited it 2 years ago for Scary Movie Month and found a whole new appreciation for it now that I had seen more blaxploitation movies. And I wish, just like Blackula, there was like a Scream, Bones, Scream, and
yeah.
stuff like that. And Ernest Dickerson directed them all.
My choice for a franchise that should have been standalone is easy. It's the same thing I've been saying for years now, and it is Scream. I'm very sorry to everyone who loves the Scream sequels. Don't
I
get
just Scream too.
I don't get the Scream sequels.
Yeah.
That movie is the Unforgiven of horror movies. It's ending the horror franchise. The characters in that movie know they're in a movie. They know they're movie characters. There's a reason why the killers are movie fans. That movie so perfectly sums up the entire genre and does so many great things that it never made sense to me that it became a franchise after that. It's almost, not to say that we missed the point, but
Mm.
it just works so powerfully, that first Scream, that the rest of them just don't ever, they just don't work for me. I'm sorry. I love that everybody loves them, but sorry.
My choices are Wishmaster and Tales from the Hood because they spawned several sequels, but they were always done on the cheap,
Yeah.
direct to video, direct to streaming. And I would rather just not have them than have them the way that they are. Right. Our next question comes from our own Rosalie. Um, a really fun one. If
Cool.
you were hosting a Hot One style show, but instead of increasing levels of spice, you were showing increasingly scarier horror movies, what movies and in what order would set the threshold? Okay. So my level one, I could have gone like Kitty, but then I didn't want to really go that far back. So like I just said Demon Knight because it's just fun.
Okay. I said Get Out
Okay.
because, it's more social horror, obviously. There's some scary images in it, but,
It's a movie you could show to people who don't like horror.
exactly.
Yeah. My level two is Event Horizon.
Nice. My level two is Dawn of the Dead, the original.
Okay. Yep. So it just gets a little bit more
A
gory,
little
but
more
still pretty
intense.
mainstream.
Hmm.
My level three is Terrifier, which I just watched last night.
My level three would be Audition.
Okay.
More
Man,
gore and also then like psychological as well.
I can't wait to see what our four and fives are if Audition and Terrifier are our threes. So for four, I put the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Yeah.
because it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And I think part of the reason is because Toby Hooper, I read, like intended it to be funny.
Hmm.
And I think just sort of like that disassociation, there's something in that alchemy that just makes it even more unsettling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For my number four, I had a couple. All right, so for my number four, I went The Shining. Because I think for my scale wasn't necessarily progressing as in terms of like scares. It was more
Mm,
so progressing in terms of like the psychology, like you need to be a little bit older, a little bit more invested, a little bit, you have a little bit more like context is more important. You know what I
sure.
mean? Like there's like it builds an intensity as because I think for me The Shining is terrifying because of what it's not doing. So like
Mm,
there's so much in the absence of scares in that movie that
mm,
your brain fills in the blanks.
yeah. Okay. And then my number five, I already mentioned it, it's Cannibal Holocaust. Really, any cannibal movie like that. Like a lot of it's Italian horror just kind of feels transgressive in a way that makes me very uncomfortable.
My number five is The Descent. The Descent is still one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life.
Our next question comes from Tom. He says, I never could get into Italian horror or giallo until a month ago at 41 years old. I suddenly can't get enough of them now. Is there a subgenre or genre you all had dismissed, then found yourselves into? For mine, it's Dark Castle, that production company. It was late 90s, like new metal horror, basically. Um, it went over my head that it was as literal as it was. It was just like we're starting with William Castle movies and making them R rated. So at the time, I kind of liked House on Haunted Hill, but I didn't like it as much as I do now. I didn't think 13 Ghosts was good. I still don't. I didn't think Ghost Ship was good. I still don't. And I kind of gave up on them for a while. But then, like, they came out with, House of Wax and Orphan and Splice. And it's like, wow, they got some really good ones. So I think it made me go back retroactively and enjoy some of even their weaker efforts a little bit more than I did before.
Nice.
Okay. Our next question comes from Louis. Besides the United States, are there any countries whose horror movies you particularly enjoy and actively seek out? And what are your top 3 horror movies from that country?
I will say I recently, because it was on my list, I did finally watch Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse,
Yeah.
which was fantastic, and
Okay.
really made me want to get into that J horror subset. Like I remember that happening, especially with all the American remakes, and I remember watching like The Ring and all that shit, like Ringu. That was one of my early like film snob, like you know, like oh you like The Ring, well I like Ringu better, like that
Yeah.
bullshit that you do when you're in college and stuff like that. But I really want to go back and revisit some of those that I hadn't seen because I loved Pulse. That was speaking of unsettling. There's some unsettling shit in that movie.
So my answer is similar to yours because I put down either UK or or Japan. So for UK, my top ones are Shaun of the Dead, The Wicker Man, Peeping Tom, Dead of Night, Ghost Watch is really good. Japanese ones, Pulse is probably my favorite, and then Kwaidan is amazing. It took a little while for me to get into. It's like a 3-hour horror anthology, but by the end of it, it was really chilling and great. And then Audition, of course, and then I'll give a shout out. This is sort of a cheat, but it's like Asian horror altogether. It's an anthology called Three Extremes. It's Park Chan, I believe, who's from China, Park Chan Wook from Korea, and Takashi Miike from Japan. Every one of those segments is unsettling. Three Extremes is the only movie that ever made me pass out in a theater,
Shit.
and that was
I need to see
from
that.
the dumpling segment, which is the kickoff of the movie.
I'm at
Okay, and then our last question comes from that spooky Tony Scott guy. Patrick recently tweeted that no one has ever looked better than Madchen Amick in I'm Dangerous Tonight, which I bought and haven't watched yet. So I meant to before this episode, but I failed. And he's absolutely correct, but it has me wondering if you could only choose one Madchen, which one would you choose? And our choices are I'm Dangerous Tonight or Sleepwalkers.
It had to be between those two?
I asked for a wild card. So I'm allowing you to have one too, because I have an answer of those two, and I also have my wild card answer, which is my ultimate.
I can't lie. I can't. It's Twin Peaks. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fall in the parameters of the question. It's Twin Peaks.
Yeah, for me, of those two, I'm sure she looks wonderful in I'm Dangerous Tonight. But Sleepwalkers was like I was 10 and I was like, what is happening? This girl is so pretty. And then for me though, like Dream Lover, the movie she did with James Spader, she kind of plays sort of like the ultimate femme fatale type in that movie.
Never seen it.
And it's you understand completely why James Spader gets into the predicament that he does because she is unbelievably smoking in that movie. So that is a wrap for our Scary Movie Month mailbag. Thank you for your questions. We will be back next week with our very special guest, JB, to talk about a subject that I know is near and dear to his heart, the Spirit Halloween store and the Spirit Halloween: the movie, starring Christopher Lloyd and Rachel Lee Cook. Oh, we should probably tease it because you're holding that up. November is going to be Ben Affleck month at reserve seating. Yeah.
Whole month of Affleck.
Whole month of Affleck.
He's going to be here.
Not the sum of all fears, the good stuff.
Oh, shots fired.
Well, whatever. You you didn't like that one either. He'll get over it. He's living his best life. Until next time.
These seats are spooky.
Spooky.